Hello, this is Ana Dominguez, your language coach, and today is about Unit 67, Sociocultural Aspects in the Syllabus of English as a Foreign Language, Treatment and Interpretation of Cultural Facts depending on students' cultural background and age. This Unit 67 is the second last of all the units we need to really study to pass the civil exam, Oposiciones, Escuela Oficial de Idiomas y Secundaria Inglés, for next June 2023. So if you are a teacher and you want to study with me and review this content, stay. I think this information is going to be very useful. And I will be very happy if you comment and you send me something by mail or you answer the form that I have uploaded with the 3 questions about this unit in my website. As you know, in the PDF, I always show you the index. Then you have the bibliography of each unit. In this case, this is the bibliography, it's very short. Then we have principal questions. Give one possible definition of culture. Give one possible definition of society. And another one is a very interesting one. Actually, I leave there a link. So if you have bought already my content, my PDF, my material, you will see that if you click there, you will go directly to a PDF with this information. Osgood's theory of word meaning. So that's for you to do some research. Then let's continue. The outline or topic summary or lesson plan. This is about 2 concepts, culture and society. Culture and human ability. The existence and use of culture depend upon an ability possessed by man alone. This ability consists in the ability for symboling, and I'm going to tell you what is that. That is, being able to assign to things and events certain meanings that cannot be grasped with the senses alone. Culture and its scientific interpretation. Let's read what they say. When things and events are considered in the context of their relation to the human organism, they constitute behaviors. When they are considered to not in terms of their relation to the human behaviors, but in their relationship to one another, they become culture by definition. So behaviors in groups define culture. The term society. Society, in its turn, can be defined as the notion of any human group that shows a so-called social structure. So remember, in its turn is another expression that we use, like a su vez, no? Society a su vez can be defined. So I think it's essential for you, if you are going to develop this in the civil exam, to take these kind of expressions and then use them for your own benefit the day that you are doing the reasoning and explaining things about the unit. Social cultural content and language teaching. And by the way, language, I have misspelled that, is language like in here, okay? So forget about the A that appears there, or the A that appears there. Social cultural, and this is another word that we, Spanish speakers, we usually say wrong, culture, because it's una U, pero se dice como A, ¿vale? Sociocultural, el resto es una schwa, so culture, cultural. So sociocultural content and language teaching, interrelationship between culture and language. Clear patterns of behavior and value systems may be discerned, which are integral parts of the cultural whole como unidad, ¿vale? For depth of cultural understanding, it is necessary to see how much patterns function in relation to each other and to appreciate their place in the cultural system. Sociocultural connect and the different approaches to language teaching. The simple skills approach to language teaching. So remember, they are going to talk about the skills that we need to develop with the comprehensive language use, speech and writing, which are the 4 used skills, basically. The same that we use for training you to pass the official exams, like the first, advanced, proficiency, and so on. Remember that those are fundamental structures, and we really need to help you to develop those skills, but This is not only that. I mean, the language is much more. It's not just only that, okay? So if we just limit the learning of a language in only those skills, that is incomplete, impossible, and misleading, okay? So we really need to be aware of the culture as a whole when we are writing the syllabus design as well. The direct method. The direct method approach to meaning is valid only insofar as we are interested in our students acquiring new levels for common objects, actions, and relationships. And we have used that. I mean, as well as the skill approach, we know that sometimes it's important to say directly what is the translation of a specific expression or idiomatic expression, what we call idiom, or idioms, or any phrasal verbs. Sometimes are difficult to explain with the synonyms, although, well, I guess that synonyms in formal style are easier. The formal style of the phrasal verbs for us are usually easier because our Latin roots help a lot in giving the meaning of phrasal verbs. But anyway, direct method is when the teacher gives you a list of vocabulary and list of expressions or list of structures, and they give you direct meaning into your own mother language. Is that wrong? No, we could use it. Not all the time. Implications for the teacher, centered upon the students. Teacher should change the student's attitude in the following aspects. The students should gain an understanding of the nature of culture. So we really need to explain what is culture, in order to help them to develop their own use of that language and the implications and the consequences that has to know a second language. Because it's full of potential. You're given the best key to open a new field of knowledge and interactions. So it can completely change your life to understand better English or write better at English. The student should achieve a fuller understanding of his own cultural background. So it's also interesting and very important that the student knows his own or her own cultural background. So what does he know about his own culture, and what does he already know or she already know about the culture that he's starting to discover, we could also say. In astrological terms, by the way, this is the axis of communication, Gemini, Sagittarius. So remember, Gemini is the proximity culture. So it's your own culture versus Sagittarius, which is the unknown culture, the culture that you are discovering, the culture that you are learning. And it's usually the exotic places that you go and visit and you travel to gain that culture. So the student should, eso ya lo he dicho, sorry, his or her so-called culture bondage should be reduced. Yeah, so remember, this is about him or her not putting so very big walls, we could say, between his or her culture and other cultures. So we are kind of reducing this limit, this bandage, this wall that we all have in a very conscious and also unconscious way. And this is interesting. And let's continue with the next part that says, center upon the teacher herself. And I'm gonna say here, yes, if you are a teacher, you probably are because you are here listening to me, preparing the civil exam. Teachers must have an informed insight into the culture of his students. So if you are a native English speaker and you are here in Spain and you haven't passed any DELE exam, Instituto Cervantes, go and pass it, because you really need to feel what does it mean to pass an official exam in another language, in your own foreign language, because if you are an English teacher and you are here in Spain, you must understand Spanish and you must develop your own second language, which is Spanish yourself. So that means also that you should know and dive into our own culture, read our literature, or literary figures, and go to the theater and do many things. If you are a teacher, you should be doing that. If you are not doing that, maybe you are not a teacher, and you probably and definitely won't be a language coach. So I keep reading. Teachers should equally possess a similar understanding of the culture of which the language taught is a part. So remember, now it's the other way around. If you are a teacher like me, I'm a Spanish girl. I love English and I love Spanish, both languages, okay? And to me, they are ways of expressing myself, and they are keys that are opening the field of knowledge in those languages. And so to me, it's essential that I really need to read in English. I really need to watch things in English, especially because I'm not living these days in a foreign country. I'm living here in Spain. I have lived before, but not now. So that's why I think it's essential that if you are here studying to pass this official exam or this civil exam, you really need to, get inspired and get exposed to this culture all the time as much as possible. The teacher who is, and then I keep reading, sorry, they will need to study very carefully the culture of the students so they are able to present aspects of the target language culture in a way that is acceptable to them. This is also important. Be respectful with the culture of the person that is receiving the coaching, or in my case, or the teaching, and you really need to match the culture as well. Be respectful. The teacher who is unable to spend a considerable period of time in the country where the language is spoken, absorbing its atmosphere, living its life, delving into its literary, historical, artistic, and folk heritage, will have to make up for this lack by disciplined reading. And this is what I have said before. I lived those experiences before, but nowadays, till 2009, I am based here in Spain, and I'm teaching from my house online, basically, although I collaborate with other academies and other schools and everything. But basically what I do is I teach from my home. So what I really need to keep doing is to keep reading in English and to keep being exposed to this culture. So by disciplined reading, and if I have to, if I could, I will, make a circle there and say, go and do that if you are a teacher, and especially if you are studying to pass an official exam as well, do it. This is the best thing you could do. Teachers must therefore take all this more seriously, the responsibility to educate themselves in cultural interpretation. And yes, this is very, very important, cultural interpretation, okay? It's not the same if you are in a place, and imagine that you come here to Spain and you don't know anything about us, and you don't know anything about our culture, our literary figures, anything about our own cinema. That would be a little difficult to connect with your students, adults especially. So yeah, my recommendation is as well, when you are starting to do the translations, that, by the way, in the School of Italian Idiomas civil exam, that we have as well, and part of the exam is to do translations from English into Spanish and from Spanish into English. Very likely Spanish translators are being asked to translate from English into Spanish. Why? Because it's our mother language. So we will be better in the outcomes of this project to do it in Spanish or into Spanish. It's true, and we can do it. We can also translate from Spanish into English, and we are being asked that in the first part of the exam, in the civil exam, School of Italian Idiomas de Secundaria. So we are being trained to do that as well, from English into Spanish and from Spanish into English. And some of them are complex. They are very kind of complex text, literary text, journalist text, scientific text. So, I know we could do that, but it's true that in the translations, the rule usually is that you translate into your own mother language. And why am I saying this suddenly out of the blue? Because the project that I'm going to do soon, with a friend of mine. I'm going to say hello to him. He knows who is he. I'm helping him to translate his novella from English into Spanish because he is an Englishman. And I had to read a book that is from my own culture in order to understand better his project. Why? Because he got inspired by Cela in El Viaje de la Alcarria. So he gave me this book. And in one evening or one day, I just read the whole thing in Spanish, obviously. And this gave me the background, necessary background for understanding him better in his project. I could have read his novel without reading El Viaje a la Alcarria de Cela, yes, but I probably would have missed the literary references and the style that he sometimes has is probably thanks to Camilo José Cela. So I'm just giving you how we are being influenced and taught by these readings that we do. It could have a fantastic impact. In this case, for example, El Viaje a la Alcarria is telling basically the story of how Cela left Madrid by train from his own house to Pastrana, and then he came back by bus or by train, or so he is telling the story in 1946. Imagine. So even for me, it was kind of a discovering to read that book full of words, Spanish words that I don't even know what they mean. Some of them, because they are very technical and they are specific from the countryside, people living in other conditions that I have never met before, So this is interesting. Third, the treatment of sociocultural content in foreign language curriculum. The expository explanatory treatment of sociocultural content. Several objections have been made to this kind of introducing the culture of other people. That is an activity more appropriate to the social studies lesson, that it consists of the absorption of a number of uninterpreted and often unrelated facts interesting in themselves, but throwing very little light on basic beliefs, values, and attitudes. That it takes students away from the basic task of language learning and communication. Yeah, I'm going to underline that because, okay, if you are not a language coach or a language teacher, but you love history because you have studied history, you probably are going to have an approach to teaching Spanish or teaching English, for example, in a complete different way, more related to telling stories and historical data, that is different from a philologist, so we need to consider that we really need to take care of how we introduce this content, because even literature, the one that you probably, for example, you love, not every book that you love, we need to consider age and also the cultural background because of this, because if you give them something that is going to be very difficult for them, that's going to be bad. It's going to be the wrong direction, because they probably are going to be bored, they are going to complain, they probably will say that this is too much. So it's important that you know how to give them, even in small doses. If you want to give something complex, give them in small doses and try to do it in a way that everything kind of understand the basics of what you're trying to teach in that lesson. And underline the technical vocabulary expressions that they are learning thanks to the text that you are using, okay, or the story that you are telling. A more integrative treatment of sociocultural content. Teaching of sociocultural contents for cultural understanding is fully integrated with the process of assimilation of language patterns and lexicon. Yeah, so what we're saying here is that For example, the dramatic readings or the theater or scripts for cinema, they can work perfectly here. Methodological suggestions for the treatment of sociocultural content. At the early learning stages, they say that dialogue material or dramatic readings, as the ones I was saying, faithfully reflecting the behavior in the foreign culture. So we teach them how people behave, the tone of voice, the cadence. You know, you could, and also you can mimic different roles if you want, because it's complex, you know, the roles of different people in the society. But this is basically what we could do in the early learning stages. In the more advanced learning stages, factual and expository materials throwing light on the system of culture in its various forms of expressing, so variety. You could show a text, you could show also an interview, you could show a scene from a theater play, you could show a short poem, even a comic, you know, like a small short comic where they can, you know, describe what's going on in the pictures. These kind of things are, or even photographers and painters, all kind of art, sculpture, landscapes. You know, you have immense sources that are using internet as well, that you could approach your students to this culture as a whole. The traditional selection of text, and I'm going to talk here about the literary text. Okay, so this is interesting and very important because and I'm going to finish the sentence, representing what the speakers of the language consider to be the masterpieces of literary production of their society. And this is essential because they are going to have those reference in the mind, the speakers of that society. So it's good for you to know the reference. And the better you read them and the better you understand them, the better you could use them in a context where people are talking about these references, cultural references. Imagine coming to Spain without knowing who is Don Quixote y Sancho. That would be difficult, you know, because we are all time using the figures and these literary figures that are huge and are universal nowadays. But if you come to Spain and you don't know where is La Mancha or these two characters, might be difficult for you to understand in certain moments why we are celebrating in La Mancha, you know, this fantastic writer Cervantes, right? So we keep reading, and the last part, which is this 4-page, the age factor and the treatment of socio-cultural content, adolescent and adults. Adolescents, common features to be generally found in all adolescents: sexual maturity and its corresponding affective and psychological changes, emotional instability, appearance of intellectual processes, such as abstract thinking, interest in the observation of the self, period in which the self-identity is in process of being constructed. This situation implies the following personality features. I have to say here that I have been teaching kids, teenage, adults throughout all my teaching from 2006 and even earlier. But my sensation in general is that I'm better with adults for one reason: they really want to learn. And that's why I'm studying for School of Oficial Idiomas, because in my opinion, when they are adults or they are teenage that have been already decided to learn the language, they have a completely different approach to the second language. And I feel better and I'm happier when the class is full of people that are, you know, enthusiastic about being there. I'm going to read these characteristics: and often rather utopian vision of reality and an idealistic conception of emotions. This is interesting. They are describing, I'm here describing features of the personality of adolescents or teenagers. And it's true, I can see myself a lot in there. It's beautiful as well. So there are plenty of literary texts that will function in a marvelous way with them. So it will work fantastically. Um, and very good, use certain literary texts with the teenagers. For example, these days I'm adapting the Little Women. Little Women is a script that, well, it's a novel, but from the 18th century, the 19th century, I think, 18 something. So it's 19th century, and it's American novel, and I'm helping my students, those that are interested in this, I'm helping them to see the difference between the novel and also the movie. So the movie script, the one that we are working on, is in 1994 script, and one day I will probably do a video in relation to this topic. So as you can see, adults, I'm not saying that teenagers are not good in class. The contrary, I'm saying that if they really want to be there, they're going to be very well involved in the activities that you propose to do with them. A rebellious attitude towards established adulthood preconceptions. That's why I think theater is one of the best tools you could use with teenage. And I know this by experience, because when I was a teenage, I initiated my relationship with theater, we could say. I was already writing some poetry, but then I was introduced in this world of theater, and then I discovered that that was a fantastic tool, not only for me, but for the rest of my friends, and I kept doing theater at university, and also in my teachings I have been using it. So yeah, if you want, you could pick some theater, some play that you like, and adapt it into your syllabus and use it. Adulthood, period occurring after the uncertain limits of the end of adolescence, showing features such as neuropsychological maturity. In my opinion, there are certain boys and girls, or women and men, that are still in their teenage time, even when they are 40. But it's okay. We can also go a little bit immature ourselves as well. Ability to play the various roles chosen by the individual. Roles, set of behaviors that characterize the individuals occupying a given social position. That's why I have to say that adulthood, this is basically people that I am accompanying are adult, and some of them are university adult. But in my opinion, university students, or the ones that are finishing the university, are still, in this kind of period I've not really been fully adults themselves, because they haven't experienced what it is to live on their own, what it is to survive with your own salaries, and and build a house, or have your own house, and take care of many things that adults really take care. So I don't know, my sensation is that we are in a period where when I accompany adults, I have also accompanied people that are elder in TICS, for example, when I was teaching TICS, new technologies. And they have another way of learning, no? And it's good. It's another interaction. It's totally different. But in general, my sensation with adulthood, as I told you, is that they are going to tell you what they need. So methodological consequences of, what to choose in your syllabus. Be aware that the case of adolescents, they are going to be concerned of image, interactive tasks, interesting activities, encouraged to learn the language. Motivation, are the students motivated to learn the new culture because they want to identify themselves with the speakers of the foreign language? So are they having some kind of role models in life? It could be famous or not famous, but they want to kind of mimic those roles, or those people. It's interesting that we discuss about who they are and why they are him or her. In the case of adults, information, treatment, capability, aspiration, and needs, vocational use of language and motivation. As I told you, the case of adults, usually they come because they want you to help them with a specific things, like I need to pass an official exam, so please help me with the speaking, or I need really to be better at writing, tell me what are my issues in the pronunciation or in the spelling or in grammar. Aspirations and needs, they are more aware of that, so they know that they lack something and they need to solve that problem, so they come to you for you to help them to solve that problem. And that's also path of their own career, in professional career I'm talking about, because this tool, the language, the foreign language, can help them to grow in their careers. And so that vocational use of language is also something that we as teachers we have, we really feel that we need that language, because as I told you before, it's a key that opens the field of knowledge and culture. So language is that, it gives you that, and adults are very aware of that. And motivation, when they have to speak in public, not only in their language, but also especially in the foreign language, they lack confidence. So they really need someone that train them to be better at giving speeches and interacting with others on the phone or in an online lesson or in an online source, because this is what is happening these days in adulthood. We work also with internet, we work on the phone all the time, or we write emails, and we really need to help them to develop those skills through the common routines that they do every day. And that's it. I hope this has been helpful, and I'll see you soon. Remember to write a comment if you want below, in the box below. You also in the description will have the link to go to my website. And that's it. I think I have finished. I'll see you soon. Bye.